Well, hello. Welcome to another great episode of Kingdom Social Justice Solutions, where we are wanting to shine a light on social justice solutions and things, of course, that are going on in our world and our society. I'm happy to about the episode we have today, which is going to be immigration updates. The last time I did an immigration video, that was probably 2019. So it's been a while. And of course, a lot has been going on in this our US of A. So the drama just is just going, is rolling, is like just keeping up with it is something. So that's a whole job in and of itself. Um, but I am excited to have on here an immigration attorney, Miss Benedicta Aguimang. I hope I'm saying that right. This is what she does. She's going to get into her background and her experience and kind of give us the update. She's our guest star today. But we just want to talk about just some of the things that's been the recent things, just so people are aware. I think that's mainly one of those things is you can be just living your life, going through it, didn't realize something just changed yesterday. Like, and that could impact you. That could impact, what documents you want to file, impact how you want to move, or maybe something you were planning to do, or something you left, oh, I'll get to it later. And it's like, you might want to get on top of that. So that's what we want to do is provide those updates so people are aware, people know what's going on. Just of course, I've shared on this podcast, of course, my personal experience with my husband, who is Nigerian, and then of course also have a Nigerian client. And the thing about that is Nigeria is on the travel ban list, so we got a situation there, and of course, what impacted, which we'll get into, because I want to talk about the visa bond program, and then of course this public charge bonds and that whole situation. But the thing is, I had my client that I filed for N-400 for him to get citizenship, and he got the appointment and everything, but then it was canceled. So, with this administration, that's they're basically just carrying out their agenda, which is in Project 2025. It's right in there. If you read it, I mean, of course, it's not going to be word for word, but if you understand the motive, then what's happening is really not shocking. They're basically trying to shrink, trying to limit, and and you can kind of see that was kind of the somewhat of the intent. Of course, they're doing some other stuff that's discriminatory on a whole nother level. But if you kind of understand where they're coming from, and then it does kind of make sense, some of the things they're implementing, because that's the other thing too. Some of the stuff they're implementing is already on the books. So it's just they're enforcing things that they already had a right to, or that probably hasn't been enforced in a while, and then maybe they pull out every now and then and decide to enforce. But unfortunately, they are putting all kinds of enforcement. This is enforcement territory right now. So, Miss Benedicta, and should I call you Benny?
Yes.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm glad to have you. And I mean, we're the same platform, a WhatsApp platform, and we're just like, I'm posting and stuff like this going on, this going on. And so she's responding. So I was like, hey, let's talk about this thing. There's a lot popping. Like even when we decided, when I suggested let's do this, like something just happened in just as short. I was like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. So I'm like, let's talk about it. If you want to just give us your background and what you do, where you are, where you're located, how people can reach you, what areas of immigration law that you focus on.
Definitely. So thank you so much for having me. We always chat on the WhatsApp group, so it's nice to put like a face to the name.
Yes.
My name is Benedicta Ojemai. I'm an immigration attorney. I'm initially from Ghana, so I guess we are like in-laws because we consider Nigeria like our
Yes. Our brother, sister, yes.
exactly. So I'm initially from Ghana. I've been in the US since 2011, and after law school, I collected an immigration court in Arizona. I did DOJ honors, and I did for 2 years. I was an immigration court working with immigration judges. So I learned how to think like a judge. I learned how
Mhm.
we process things. And I'm currently located in Worcester, Massachusetts. But the great thing about immigration law is that it's federal law, right? So then I have
Right, right.
clients from all 50 states and
Yeah.
from from all over. And we live in very interesting times. It's amazing how often things change. And you could just speak to somebody today. And so one thing that I'm telling people is that if you know that you qualify for something, apply for it because
Yes.
watch you wake up to a newborn, right? Or watch you wake up and something has drastically changed. So I'm really excited to get into it and just to cover some of the changes we've seen in immigration law this past couple of weeks or month or since January.
Yes. Yes. And yes, I'm glad you point. Actually, I worked for, well, before I went to law school, I worked for well, U.S. Attorney's Office in Missouri. And then I went to law school and
Yeah.
then worked at I did the SASA program. It's a special assistant U.S. attorney position. Of course, that was in 2012. So that was a time where they were offering all these positions, of course, for free. And then that's the way they sold it was like, oh, you don't have to pay your school loans. I'm like, come on. So anyway, that was how I got some, litigation experience. So I remember those days. But no, that's great. I mean, and like you were talking about, so you can think like a judge. Also at one time I worked for the state, um, handling like the medical, like basically like the SSI, people applying for Medicaid, things like that. And so even though the decision, so yeah, and even when I, as a litigator, or even when clients come to me, and back in your mind, you're thinking, okay, how is this going to be decided? So it's not just a matter of, okay, here's my evidence, or here's what I'm like, no, I'm thinking about what is the judge going to think about this? And so how that's crucial when someone's saying, okay, here's my documentation. Here, I'm like, well, hold up now. You got to think about somebody that's on the other end reviewing your applications, reviewing your situation. And so I know people may think, oh, she's being too strict. I'm like, I'm just trying to make sure this will be successful.
I was just telling someone today, and I was like, you know what? It's my job to keep you out of
Yeah,
being deported, out of the immigration court, right? So excuse me if I come off as being very real or very mean. I have a job to do, right? And my job is
right.
to make you are not being picked up, you are not being deported, you are not
Yes.
like. But XYZ said it, and I'm like, it's okay what XYZ said. I have a job to do. My job is to make sure
Right.
that you're not deported from the immigration court. So you are right. Sometimes it's tough love, but it's needed, especially in these times, right? I would
Yes.
rather give you the tough love and say
Yes.
don't. For example, people have been and even if you don't mind, I can just zoom in one of the updates and give us an example.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So there was a BIA case recently, that actually said that I think it's matter of Arala, there's a lot of L's and Y in that word, but it basically said that if you are applying for adjustment of status and
Right.
you overstayed your visa, right? There's usually a ban, right? And then
Right.
if you pardon, you come back on advance parole, that counts as a
Mm.
departure. That bar and then makes you inadmissible. So I sent an email to all my clients who have advanced parole, especially VAWA ones, because even before this, we saw a lot of them targeting male VAWA applicants at airports, and see people
Okay.
so many questions. So we knew this was down the pipeline. And I
Mhm.
sent an email to my clients. I'm like, this is the new BIA ruling. If
Mhm.
you have advanced parole, do not leave the country if you can, unless it's an emergency. Because if you do and then you previously overstayed, which most people have, then it triggers the ban. And then this one client was like, "Oh, but I wanted to," and I'm like, "Sir, if it's on a life and death situation, stay, okay." Did somebody die? Is somebody about to die? If the answer is,
Travel at your own risk.
you know,
Seriously.
sometimes we have to give that tough love because people are gonna come with 50, 11 reasons why they want to travel, and it's like, right, the laws change, and then when the laws change, most of these go straight into effect. So you can't even like, oh, I have to take this one more. No, I might need to sit down.
Yes. Well, because and that's what I advise even my client as well, because of course people want to go home for the holidays and be with the family. And my thing is like, think about that time period, like we just said, this short time between I contacted you and stuff is already changed. So imagine going home for a month or two for the holidays, and something could have changed that would possibly affect your situation and affect you getting back to into the country. So no, it's like no, you just this is a time to just kind of lay low and be calm. Be calm. So yeah, I was just going to talk a little bit about so the visa bonds. There was a pilot program that they put in place, and these were for, and they definitely correct me if I'm wrong. Um, of course, the 39 countries on the visa ban list, and these, of course, were B1, B2s. Of course, they had their justification, on why, they were saying these were high overstays, these countries, and so their thing is, and I'm like, to be for real. I mean, that's what people do. They get they get that visa, come over and just go ahead and stay. They start work, doing. Hey, so they recognize, okay, this is a pathway we see people coming in and exploiting. So their thing is like, now, of course, I think it's of course I have my own opinions that okay, you're gonna, pick on a lot of African countries and South American countries. Um, but of course, we have other people that have been Canadians coming back and forth, back and forth, and staying and overstaying and doing all kinds of things. But anyway, so now they did the pilot program, but now it's become permanent, and so they have the bond amounts, 10,000, 15,000, and 20,000, and this is part of the application process. And of course, as a bond is like with anything else, a bond is basically a guarantee, a money that you're posting saying that if I don't do X, Y, and Z, then basically you can take my money. We can go to criminal law, and if that's, kind of like a bail bonds, it's like you were released on bail. Um, and then, but of course, with the promise that you're going to come back to court. And so there's money there. So basically, in that bond, and that's why you see different people, they're trying to either get the bond lowered so it'd be, affordable, or, either higher bond or lower bond. But the thing is like, okay, so in case you don't come back to court on this day, then this is the money that's going to have to be paid. You're basically forfeiting that money. And so, in other words, uh, the U.S. government said y'all gonna have to pay us, because so it's almost in a way is it the pay to play? It's basically saying if you're gonna come here and they're saying they're assessing that this is how much it costs the US government to basically handle all, either sending you back, deporting you, or handling your process. And so they're estimating these amounts. And so they're saying if you want to come, then we're gonna need you to post this file.
Yeah.
And of
One,
course
one,
it was yeah, go ahead.
one interesting thing for me is how the US immigration system has become more it has become so evident that it's a have versus a have not, right?
Oh
Because
yeah.
when I first saw these
If
things,
you
I
have
thought
the
that
money, yeah.
people can afford this, right?
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
I'm pretty sure if people could afford this amount of money, they would probably
Right.
not.
Right.
You're gonna be
Well,
chilling,
no,
right?
and that's yeah, and you see that's obviously the target. Like that's basically what they're saying. They're like, okay, we don't want people that can't afford this. Basically, only and I think that's if you look at it in a way, because when you're going through the non-immigrant process and they're asking you these
Yeah.
questions, because we tried to do it with my husband, but they were like, you have a pending I-130. They're like, no. Then they're like, is you from Nigeria? No. And you never, well, but yeah, anyway, we're not gonna get all into that. But their thing is like, of course, making sure that you got enough money for the trip. And, so I think it's the whole thing of that when you're applying for a non-immigrant status, you're saying, I'm not planning on immigrating. I'm only coming here to visit. And so they're like, okay, we need evidence of that.
Right.
But of course, people have used that, as a means to come in, which is, and that's the thing. That's, with anything else, when people abuse certain things, and it makes it bad for everybody, and so then everybody gets shut out. Because I'm sure there's some. Think about our elders. Some of our elders is not leaving. I think about, maybe my mother-in-law or so. I'm like, I doubt she's trying to come over here and stay. They would probably visit, and then, the older ones would probably be willing to go back home. Um, so that was, and we won't get all into the specifics, but that's something that,
I,
um,
I have,
oh,
let's
good.
say, one good news. Speaking about non-immigrant visas, because we might as well just throw in the good news, right? Um,
Okay.
there's been something where people can get like pay a certain amount of money and get like an expedited visa for non-immigrant visas. It started only in a few countries. Right now, they've extended it to a couple more countries, not Ghana, not Nigeria yet. But that's
Yeah.
so helpful to know, right? Just in case that you have an emergency and you really want to come and
Right.
stay. depending on your country of origin, number one, you have to pay the bond money, and number two, you have to pay the express money. But and then again, the have it versus the have not, right? How many people can
Right.
afford this? But hypothetically speaking, right, if you were in an emergency and you really needed to come into the US, and hypothetically speaking, you have enough money, you're from a country that has to pay the bond, you have enough money
Right.
to pay the bond. And you have some extra $1,000 to actually pay the express fee too. So I guess that is one using positive, loosely positive thing that
Yeah.
has been done. So I guess it's worth highlighting too, because you never know. I had somebody call me that said that she's in she's about to have a baby, and the doctor said that she is gonna it's like a high risk pregnancy, and she's gonna need a lot of like care. And then as women of color, we know, and just women overall, right? Most mothers are like the best postpartum caregivers, right? Mothers, aunties, the community, your village. So she
Right.
called. She's like, you know what, I need my mom to get here as soon as possible. And I was like, I'm sorry, this thing just rolled out in Ghana was not right. But in a case like that where somebody really needed a family member to come and help with them with care or something, that
Right.
would be helpful for them. So I guess that's one thing that we can say is probably good in the non-immigrant visa space.
Right. Well, and then, the thing is, it hasn't been tested. The hope is that you get the money back now because it sounds like it's going to go through the treasury. And of course, that means it sounds like if there's any outstanding, taxes due or things like that, they will provide the balance. Whatever they feel that you owe, they're going to hold on to that. So, and then that was just my concern. It's like, how would you enforce getting that money back?
Well,
But,
trust me, I pay $25,000. I'm gonna find a way to get it back. I'm like,
wow. So, like I said, we'll see.
no way.
We'll definitely see. So the public charge, I kind of want to talk a little bit about that because that's kind of recently too. Now the public charge is something, and that's also, from my understanding, even with the process, even when you are applying, like me applying for my husband, I had to do an affidavit of support. So that's still tying into like so like in a way, like I said earlier, it's kind of that thing of like, okay, here are all the rules, here's the level of strictness. And then here's like, okay, this is kind of either the middle or the minimum standard. Like, okay, we will accept this affidavit of support. We accept someone, but now they're saying, well, no, now because we got an issue here, now we want you to provide one. But the good thing is, it's not because initially I was thinking, I'm like, okay, is it going to be these 10, 15, $20,000 bonds? But it set a minimum of $1,000, and then it's up to the counselor officer to make that determination. And it sounds like it also is a matter of, okay, that's the only thing. I don't know if that's what your take. Like this is like the only thing that's holding you back from and this. And once again, this is different from the non-immigrant visitor visa. These are the immigrant visas. And from my understanding, it's also that's at the consular processing, but also here when you're adjusting status, when you're here and you're on some other type of visa, and now you want to file an I-45 to adjust status, that now that issue, in my understanding, if that's the only issue, then they're like, okay, if we otherwise would deny you or you be inadmissible unless you can come up with some money. And then they can set that amount.
So I
Is
let's
that kind of
let's go back because I really cannot get over this, right? So there's a 75 country bond, right?
right?
Over
Yeah.
countries and about they being able to bring people petitions. For example, if your husband was in Nigeria,
Yeah.
if your ability to petition for him, and this was specifically for immigrant visas. And in case somebody does not know, an immigrant visa is it's a visa that you're trying to immigrate, just that the word says you're trying to immigrate to the US. So it's
Right.
where you can petition by a family member of yours or even job petitions for you, right? And then a non-immigrant visa is what it says you are not trying to immigrate, you're not trying to move, right? You're just trying to go visit, go to Times Square, take some pictures. What state are you
Right.
in?
Yeah, I'm in Dallas.
Dallas. So go see the Dallas Cowboys, right? Go sightsee and then just head
Right.
back. That's a
Right.
non-immigrant. And this ban was specifically for immigrant visas, so people that have been petitioned for. And then they will go
Mhm.
to the embassy and then they were denied under 221G. And then this Friday, a district court judge says that it was way beyond the Secretary of State's
Yeah.
powers to do that.
Mhm.
have the authority or power to tell consular officers how to do their job. They also held that it was discriminatory because instead of doing a case by case analysis, they just targeted 75 countries.
Mhm.
So it got overturned. Surprise, surprise, right? Surprise,
Right.
surprise. Monday, we hear that they've cancelled immigrant visa application like throughout so many countries. So it's not even the 75 countries, so many countries, including some non-immigrant visas like K1 visas. Because remember, K1 is a funky one.
Right,
K1 is
right. Kind of
right.
like a non, right.
So when in the initial 75 country ban, K1 visas could come. There was
Ah.
now this pause or whatever is affecting the K1, and now they're like, oh, by the way, we're going to do public training on public charge. So
All of a sudden, all of a sudden, that's true.
I just think it's very interesting because it's kind of like, what next, right? You bring a policy that caught at this point is like clearly you're just trying to. So I just think so.
Circumvent. Yeah.
Before I give my legal weight to it, I just thought I just wanted to map it out so just so we all understand how interesting, for lack of a better word, this public charge thing is. And even before this, I saw some other attorneys say that their clients had been denied on the public charge. And the interesting thing about a public charge is, as you rightly put, is if I've been in the US, right, and I've used a means tested benefit like Social Security or something like that,
Right.
it could show that, like, let's say cash assistance or long-term institutionalization, or if I receive any benefits, if I have a sponsor, like stuff like that. If
Mhm.
I'm, let's say I'm from Ghana, if I'm still in Ghana, what government resource have I used for you to tell me I'm going to be a public church? What is it based on? Right? And even now we're seeing that even when people have sponsors, they are still so I say that to say this is it's something that we are observing and something that we
Okay.
find very interesting. Because if I tell you that, hey, you took food stamps, you did XYZ, so you're a public charge, or you've done XYZ, it makes sense to me. But if I've not even stepped foot in the country, what did I do?
Like, and no, as you're explaining it, I feel like they would probably hold the person that's sponsoring.
But
They would some
even that, so we saw cases where attorneys had clients, and then those like those sponsors were squeaky clean.
oh, and they still
So to answer your question, when it comes to public charge with those outside the country, we are observing it. And since officers
okay.
are training,
Right.
we are curious to know how the training goes, right? We are curious to see if they'll give us any guidelines after their training.
Right.
And those guidelines would guide us. But for the ones in the US, we kind of have we know what to expect. So this goes into effect September 16th. And
Okay.
right now it's fully like cash assistance, maintenance like food stamps and stuff like that. If you've
Okay.
had any long-term institutionalization as government expense, so let's say you fell sick or you had to go like a mental home or a group home and the government had to take care of it. But right
Right.
now we are seeing it to include any means tested benefit. And that's also one of the interesting things. It's how ambiguous some of these things are. What is, you know what I
Like,
mean?
what's make explain. Well, no, the fact that they even have to have training, it's like, how are you writing? So you're writing the rule and you put it out there, and then you want to finalize it, but then, I mean, I guess ideally I get that, but it's like, I don't know. But no, I mean, it kind of reminds me, and I don't want to get into it because I haven't really thoroughly looked at what the kind of the birthright citizenship thing is because they lost at Supreme Court, which the kind of, I guess, try to narrow what is considered, I guess, being in the or what in under the jurisdiction of, and what that actually means. And so, but since they lost it, so then they use executive order to then declare, okay, well, these people are the one. So yeah, I mean, and that's why I said at the beginning is like, if you look at Project 2025, if you see, the Steve Miller and their agenda behind it, then you can kind of understand, because I think a lot of immigrants are probably like shocked because it is a shock. You go from Biden, which was kind of like, come on in. And it wasn't because I think if people understand the history, because once again, immigration changed in what we haven't had any really comprehensive reform in what 20 years, over 20 years. So, but I think that's intentional, it's on purpose. So it's not that, and of course, people have been advocating. Like there was a bill in uh when Biden was in office. There was a couple bills that I think was even a bipartisan that they were working on and wanted to go through. But obviously, this is when this administration came in, this is the agenda, and which is I think to really shrink immigration, which makes no sense considering our job economy and all the other things, but that's a whole nother whole nother subject. But I don't know if you want to give us any more of the other updates. I know you do some other things. I know TPS. My
Yeah.
heart goes out to the Haitian. Also, there was something about uh them revoking people's visitor visas if they seem that they apply for asylum. And then it's like, how is that gonna play out? Like, what are y'all using to track people? Like,
We are keeping an eye out on, and that's one of the interesting things is that sometimes you would see something that has been um announced
oh,
media, right?
oh,
Like Fox News or something. And then sometimes you go to USCIS website and there's nothing there. And
mm,
that's another interesting thing. So we are getting, and that's why sometimes people get confused because you go on TikTok and 50 people are saying 50 different things, right? Because sometimes we haven't gotten at just classic example. When in May, when they released the thing about when they released the thing about the ability to adjust status in the US, right?
okay.
There was a
Oh yeah,
policy
I
that
remember that. Yeah.
the policy that was replaced. And that policy didn't say, that policy just said that, okay, being able to adjust your status in the US is a matter of discretion and not right, right? That policy explicitly did not say anything about you cannot adjust status in the US anymore. What it said is that it's a matter of policy, it's a matter of
Mm-hmm.
discretion, so we'll do discretionary factors. Then at that point, the head of DHS says, go home to your country. If you've overstayed, you can no longer adjust status. So remember that weekend, that Friday, everybody was so confused because people were reading a policy that didn't mention that, and people were reading what the secretary tweeted on Instagram. Now we both
Mm-hmm.
know that laws are not made by an Instagram tweet. Laws are not
Right,
made by posts, right? But right now that's what we resort to. So I'm just telling the audience just so they look at things with a grain of salt that when you read things, it could be that the person that's communicating to you doesn't have all the information
right,
because we're not getting all the information. We are getting it in a piecemeal manner. So sometimes
right.
people to be so confused that lawyer A said this, lawyer B said this, and I try to
Mm-hmm.
say that it is not the lawyer's fault. I, for one, only wait to do my videos. I do my videos twice a week on purpose. I do one in English, one in Chi. And I
Okay.
do it Sundays after church because that's the only time I have makeup on. But then it's helpful too because sometimes, like within a week, you know this, they just give like three different variants of a new policy. It's like, sir, what exactly is happening? Like, make up your mind, okay? You want to change the law, we get it. Can you make up your mind as to how you are changing this law, right? So I just want to encourage everyone that sometimes just be patient and
Yeah.
because sometimes we're not getting all the information. You go to your
Mm-hmm.
website, there's nothing there, and
Yeah.
you are reading from AP News, from Fox News, from CNN, and you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
put together. And sometimes you're told that there was a memo that was circulated, and among officers, and then you're now trying to go back and look at what was circulated. So
Mm-hmm.
in times like this, it's these things are ambiguous, and then there's no clarity there, right? So
Right.
if you go on TikTok and you see five different lawyers saying five different things, that doesn't mean that any of them is incompetent. What it means is that there is confusing information that five
Mhm.
people are channeling through their
Right.
it's like you have five blind men describe an elephant, right? Each one will tell you the path that they took. If I hold the leg, I'll tell you how the leg is. If I hold the
Mm-hmm.
tax, I'll tell you how the tax is. So because so I've had so many things about frustration from lawyers, and it's just that we are getting information piecemeal and we are communicating it to you piecemeal, right?
Right.
Sometimes that's when even sometimes even then we've seen time and time again where sometimes even the for example even the memo about adjustment of status, so then the memo didn't say that, then the Steve Miller said that, and then someone else pop did it on like Facebook, and then we saw them asking for different like questions later on. They came back to clarify and said, oh, by the way, we didn't mean that everybody should leave, right? So sometimes even they go back because I think they think through it and they try to implement, and they're like, actually it's not going to work out. Um, so sometimes even they recount stuff, and that goes to my next point as we're wrapping up of just immigration laws change all the time. So you can't be like,
Mhm.
oh, somebody told me my cousin's brother's wife's husband's pastor told me this 5 years ago, and I'm going to hold
Right.
on.
Right.
Immigration
Right.
laws change all the time, and
Mm.
wake up to a new ban. We wake up to things being overturned. We wake up to things being overturned, and then the president trying to do something else. Because in the very week that, or I think a week after, not a week after, but shortly after the Supreme Court ruled against the birthright citizenship, then he brought something about birth tourism and all. So, and it tells that these things are a constant battle.
Right. Right.
When are these
Well,
battles
because they're testing and trying things. Like that's the thing, you know. I mean, and it's unfortunate because it's affecting real lives, real people. Um, so that's what's sad about it. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, 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 it's totally, totally fine. So yes, you mentioned TPS. I just want to hammer on it. It's sad. It's sad to see like when some of them are ending like pretty soon, and then their organizations are not going to get renewed. And it's just so sad.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
the government argument has been that the T for TPS is temporary, so it should be temporary. And
right.
it shouldn't be something that but if someone has lived here the whole life, and this is the place that they know. And we know that these people are from countries like Haiti. They cannot go back, right?
Yeah, it's like,
Like we
and
know.
we know, and then because we are part of the issue, so it's not like we should be shocked. Like when you cause issues. But no, and so I have, and I've tried to, and that's why I don't do a whole lot of, God bless you and others that do the silent case, because like I'll get notices, somebody's looking for somebody, they got a removal case next week. I'm like, sir, ma'am, I am not showing up. So
Like that. She's like, not today.
not today. And I'm like, all that drama. So and then like you said, the positive, I try to be, and I know people are, because even me, and I mean, we're at a war. We're in war with Iran. So I just feel like everybody should at least try to get a passport, just have a backup plan. And that's whatever status, even if you're a U.S. citizen, and if you of a darker hue, I would say have a backup plan of, even if and so I understand maybe people like, well, like I said, Haitians. I'm like, okay, I can't go back maybe to my country, but invest and see what are some other options. What else can I do? Because just sitting around waiting to be picked up, like I don't, that's where I kind of want to bring in and we don't have to get into this, but the aspect of estate planning, because that's what breaks my heart, is like thinking, okay, say you're the breadwinner and you go for your check-in and then you don't come back, and so then you got the wife and kids and they're like, okay, now what are we going to do? The thing is make a plan. This is healed, this is life, this is what we're experiencing, so let's prepare. Let's plan for it. Let's not, I guess, live in a fantasy land and realize like that this is their agenda, and they're gonna keep pushing until, I would say, even after 47 leaves office, because it's a Steve Miller thing, and it's obviously people have already been put in place. I think that's what people have to understand about the executive branch, and how when you put heads of agencies, and then of course they're putting, I mean, because my sister works for USCIS, but when they put people in place, like they're entrenched. So that's the thing. They have someone up here and they put their people in place, and then they're implementing. And that's the thing about it that is they're putting in policies that are permanent, like the visa bond. That's now a permanent thing, unless you have another, because they still would have to go through the rule process. So you would have to have, because Congress is not doing anything. I don't know, but you would have to have another either administration or somebody that is going to be strong enough and push just as hard or harder to try to then implement their own thing. Because in the way we've seen that, when the 47's first administration, he came in and did the travel Mandela stuff, and then Biden came in and like, okay, I'm reversing. Because I don't know if you spent like the first day, I'm reversing everything he's doing. But then they came back with a vengeance. It was like, okay, now we gonna come back with the comeback. So it's
I
a thing of like, oh, go ahead.
I don't look forward to it's gonna be such an administrative, I can't even find the right word to use to just rectify all of these things.
Yeah, you would have to literally, and so that's the thing, and that's why I say people, instead of kind of doing the whole limbo, okay, well, if I just wait out and I hope, you have to make your own plan, because then you're living in limbo. You're living depending on who's in charge, whatever the wind's blowing, what party wins office. And it's like, no, you take control of your own life and decide, no, this is what I want for my family. Maybe we came here, this is how we came, maybe we didn't come the right way, or I've been kind of in this status, but I need, I don't know if you said this earlier, but yeah, about if you have the ability to file for something to get something more concrete, please do it now because even the N400, I hope they're proposing to take that up to what
Yeah.
almost 1300. Yeah, and my husband hasn't. We haven't even applied for that yet. So
At this point, I sound like a broken record because we it's I feel like we're in like what's the movie that it's like I forgot the name. It's like you wake up and it's like what is happening today? Like
yeah,
what bad-
like that's what's
I wake up like, are we still here?
yeah.
I still have a job? Can we still do
And that's
this?
what I'm saying. It's like a pay for play. I also wanted to touch on, and I want to get too technical, but I think people not understanding the difference between Department of State and like USCIS and even the Custom and Border Control, like they're I don't, and let me not try to get into the
Right.
history of. I
I
really they
could
were they all
do that.
you
Yeah.
go
So it's funny. I have this know your rights videos. I know your I do
okay.
know your rights presentations. I do it for something like African communities. And
Okay.
I was just thinking about it because it's literally like the third thing on my slide so that people don't get confused. So
Yeah.
immigration as one body, right? But the truth is that
Right.
immigration has so many different federal agencies that
Yeah.
are intertwined. So, for example, I used to work at immigration court. When I did work, I was an employee of the DOJ. My
You
paycheck was from DOJ.
okay.
Immigration judges work for DOJ. Their paycheck is from DOJ under EOIR, Executive Office of Immigration Review. Then we have DHS. DHS is the Department of Homeland Security.
Mm.
USCIS is technically under DHS, the big umbrella of DHS. Um, there's also there's also ICE, right? We all know ICE.
Right.
ICE.
Everybody knows.
I already know ICE.
The
There's also
world knows.
right, and then there's also specific the OPLA lawyers. OPLA is Office of Principal Law Advisor. They are the ones
Okay.
that work in the court. So they're also the OPLA DHS attorneys. Their
Okay.
paycheck is from DHS. Now there is CBP. CBP is Customs and Border Patrol. They are technically under the big DHS umbrella. So DHS is a big umbrella. It actually
Right.
those folks that even help with like natural disasters and all. What's the
Yeah.
name?
FEMA. FEMA.
Yes, they're actually under the big.
Under.
So it's a big agency actually.
Mm-hmm.
So there is there's also CBP. Now CBP's job is to protect the borders. It's Customs and Border Patrol, right? Their job is to protect the borders. So you see them at the borders. If you come into the US by plane, you see them at the airport. They usually wear, I believe they wear green at the airport. When I used to work in the court in Arizona, we did a tour around even the borders. And then they are at the borders. So their job is to protect the borders.
Right.
And
Right.
until recently, they could even do expedited removal for those people that are in 100 miles of the borders because that was their jurisdiction, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's also Department of State. The Department of State is not part of DHS, but
Right.
they help with visas in other
Mm-hmm.
countries. So your
Yeah.
consular officer is under the Department of State. The
Mm.
embassies are under the Department of State.
Yes.
So I tell people that when you want to request your records based on what they're looking for, you may have to request records from different federal agencies. For
Mm-hmm.
example, I'm dealing with a case where we need to request his Department of State records because the embassy is claiming something that he says is not true. I'm like, okay, then let's get your records from the Department of State. I
Right.
have another client too that is saying that something on his CBP record is not right. Like that the CBP officer said XYZ didn't happen. Like, okay, let's get your CBP for you. So just remember that even when you want to pull your records, it's not just
Mhm.
USCIS. We
Right.
are
Right. Right.
separate federal agencies. Now, unfortunately, Department of State and CBP take notoriously long to get FOIA requests back.
Oh,
So I
okay.
tell people, don't wait,
Okay.
don't wait. Right? If you know that there's something in your history that you know is a little bit iffy, the earlier
Yeah.
you get your records, the better. That way, you know. I learned this in the hard way in court that you cannot go to battle with somebody who knows more than you.
All right.
I learned it in court the
And I
hard
don't
way.
like to be surprised either.
I learned it in court the hard way because I was representing this client that had a case. Oh my God, it was an old case. It was an old case, and I had asked the previous attorney to send over the file, and she conveniently omitted one thing. So the DHS lawyer was like talking. I'm like, this is not here. I read this cover for cover. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's not here. He's like, actually have it here. Yeah. So never again. So now I pull my client's records because sometimes the previous lawyer could honestly forget being used loosely, could honestly forget to give you one document. And at that point, you don't
Right.
know what you don't know. So I don't know. I don't have that one
Yeah.
document. I didn't know it existed to begin with, right?
Right. Right.
I tell people that you cannot go to war with somebody who knows more than you do. And
Yes.
we're in a war, right? We're in a war every time you go in a court, every time you go into a USS to interview. And I've had cases where recently a lot they go and they go back to people's B1, B2 applications, and they're putting things to try to bring up
Deny.
as interviews. I tell people, put your Department of State record, right? When you
Yeah.
apply for a visa, what did you put on? Did you put that you were married, right?
Mhm.
You put that your mother. I've had USCIS officers question people about their parents' name and date of birth, and it's like, well, on the DS-160 you said XYZ. Why are you changing it now? Right? So
Right.
make sure, just, and I know we have a few minutes to go, but if I had any last words for people out there, just be consistent. When I used to work in immigration court, one of the ways that the judges and the government lawyers would come at people and claim that they were lying was inconsistency. That was the one
Yes.
decisions for the judges. So we used to see inconsistency was in almost every decision. So be
Mhm.
consistent, especially if, for example, you're applying for asylum, right? If you came through the border, you spoke to a CBP officer. What did you tell that CBP officer? What did you say your credible fear interview? If you had a
Yeah.
USCIS, if you had an affirmative asylum interview, what did you tell the person there? Well, guess what? You can't now magically be like, what happened was, right? So I tell people to be consistent. If
Yeah.
X happened to you, X happened to you. I also tell people to avoid embellishments. They can see that if I said I was beaten by one person, I cannot be, matter of fact, there were 10, bro, right? So
Right.
avoid
Right.
embellishments because these people are looking at your records. Also, you can put your records for yourself and just know what they have on you because sometimes it's just a little thing. The number of times that I've seen cases where they went back like 20, 30 years. And like, I don't know about you, but I don't remember 20 years down the line. I do not. I don't. Right?
Mhm.
I don't.
And like I said, I worked on the federal level, and of course, this was in criminal court, and like we even had a bar, and we had like a minimum cases that we would even take, and basically we didn't prosecute cases unless we knew we could win, and usually our cases where we actually had confessions, video confessions. So like, so the thing is like, if we coming for you on the federal level, we got you, like we got evidence. And so I think that's the other thing for people to understand. I think even as immigrants, and of course I've done something. I got married actually in Nigeria, and even going through that whole when it comes to paperwork and run. Oh my gosh! So they're paper, but they can. There's some things they can do around paper. Whereas here we are, and when I'm saying paper, I'm not meaning physical paper, but we are a document base. And I worked at SBA during COVID and the IDA loans, and even with the fraud, everybody was claiming all kinds of stuff. And that's how we caught people because we look and I was like, okay, you saying this, that, and the other. And this is of course, they made it very easy. But yeah, that's what we would look at what people said on their applications. We would look at what documentation they were presenting. So they would have the application. And then what we did is we went back and say, okay, we need proof of X, Y, and Z. And then when the stuff wasn't matched. So, and like you were just saying, you need to be consistent. And so even when I'm meeting with people or have met with people, that is one of the my things is like, let me see your history. Let me see what did you put down when you on the application. What did you tell the people? Because like, yeah, if you now, and they might think, oh, it's my, and of course people don't even think about it, they don't remember. But I'm like, but that's why it's our job. Because like you said, I'm thinking about the reviewer and what's going through their mind is they're looking at all the paperwork and they're comparing this document to this document. Is it the same? Like you said, is your mom your first and last name? Is her date of birth? Did you leave a child out? I don't know why we leaving children. Did you
Literally,
say
somebody asked me that yesterday, and I just had, to your point, I couldn't even answer. I'm like, why? Like, I needed to explain what is your rationale. Okay, I need to understand this. So, like, it
did you
baffles.
totally leave a child?
Yep, all the time. I'm like, nah, I'm gonna need you to explain to me. I don't know about you, but I remember all my kids. Okay, they are a handful. They know where I'm forgetting. They know way because they are a handful. It's like I'm always like, wait, where they are? There's three of them. One, two, three. Okay, we good. So I don't know how you're gonna forget. Okay, maybe your kids is not a handful like mine. That's nice, but the way mine are set up,
That's the thing. It's like the application. They're asking you these things. I mean, for a reason. Like, and I think that's kind of, I think that's why it's good for you to have that experience and have on that side, because then you can say, because people may think, oh, this is just, demographic information. It's like, no, there's a reason why they're asking if your parents, what's your parents' name, and have they been to the country, and even when they go through, of course, I'm just talking in general about the even when it comes to, the natural, like the N-400, they ask you all these questions about, have you been involved in, and you're saying no, 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 no. The reason, and that's what we want to say on those documents, they're saying any statement you made on these documents, you're basically attesting to that. It's almost like testifying. And so if they come out, there's evidence, they're saying, okay, you lied on a government document. So that's why, we're trying to make sure that we're consistent. And then even if there is something that you may like, oh, or nervous about, the thing is, tell us as attorneys so we can plan. Like, there might be something, something to, there might be a waiver, but give us something, give us opportunity to address it.
Yep. Yep.
Because it's like, we don't want to be on the other side of, oh, you left that out and we didn't, we could have did something about that. But if you don't tell us, then we can't, we can't help you.
Absolutely right. I
So
just noticed that our time is up. I need to run to another meeting. It's been such a pleasure. Such a
pleasure
pleasure
too.
hanging
I
out.
enjoyed it. Yeah, it's fun. We have to do this again. I don't know if you want to, you say you do updates on your channel.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Maybe we can do some, I don't know, so much will probably be a change. We can do something before the end of the year again. So
Definitely. Definitely. Just please hit me up and I'll be glad to come back.
okay, thank you so much,
You.
Miss
Thank you. Have a lovely
Benedicta.
rest of your day.
All right. Okay, take care. Bye bye.